Ladies and gentlemen, we are back live very much because this time we lay our focus on the secret sauce of hacking growth. Now, if I can just put it in two factors right out there, it would be customer loyalty and retention. That's how today's fastest growing companies are driving growth. So, on that note, allow me to invite the session host, the one who would be steering forward the conversations. We'll be warmly welcoming onto the stage Deepti Sagar, partner Deloitte. Well, she'll be in conversation with Navaneel, the president and head India sales Tata Consumer Products. So, Deepti, with that, it's over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Shrika, for the warm welcome. And it's a pleasure to be here today. And, I'm very excited to chat with somebody who shares the passion of customer transformation and engagement equally with me. So Navaneel, great to be here with you in this, and having you in the company for the next 20 minutes. Uh, I think, if I may just start and looking at the topic to say customer loyalty, hacking growth for fastest growing companies. I think there's enough empirical and anecdotal evidence out there that customer loyalty is important for businesses. It's a very key strategic driver. There are enough statistics which say out there that companies that invest in customer loyalty grow about 2.5 to 5 times than the ones that don't. And there was a research done in West sometime back which said about 300 companies that went for IPO and companies that invested in customer unit economics like customer cohorts, lifetime value, agent network had far better performance on their IPO release than the traditional old companies sticking to operational and functional metrics. And now we're coming to you in the business that you look at, right? It has a mass appeal, multiple brands. And, if I say after my phone, I think the brand that I touch the most probably is the brands that come from your company, right? Any meal would have at least one brand coming from your company. And it's across the segment. How are you managing loyalty, customer engagement, especially in current times? There's no doubt it is important, but in current times with the anytime, anywhere generation, right here, right now, instant gratification buzzer, where there are plethora of choices out there. How are you engaging customers and ensuring that your growth is more loyalty, deep-rooted, loyalty-led than just riding on the wave?
Thanks so much, Deepti. And first of all, a big thank you to Economic Times and ETH to have me in this call. And it's a real pleasure to be here talking about hacking growth. And I love the phrase hacking growth because it spells of disruption. And disruption is really the buzzword today. You pick up any industry, whether it is CPG, whether it is any other industry, all traditional business models are getting disrupted. And consumer buying behavior is changing every day as we speak, right? So I think in the CPG space, what we're really seeing is omni-channel behavior from consumers. Consumers no longer buy from established channels. They buy all over the place, whether it is e-commerce. So every one of us, orders on Amazon, Flipkart, on Big Basket. We also walk into our neighborhood kirana and pick up stuff. So no longer, gone are the days where a consumer would shop in a particular channel. So the biggest trend we see is omni-channel. Along with that, our sense, Deepti, is also that we do talk about loyalty and retention, but the fact is that loyalty is also very fickle today because the consumer is spoiled for choice. Yeah, and earlier availability and penetration used to drive consumer preference and loyalty to some extent. But today, the consumer is spoiled for choice, and the products across brands are available across channels, across formats. And a consumer, because of the strong prevalence of digital and the information age, is far more aware about products and services than what they were before. And this phenomena is very rapidly changing consumer behavior because, it's just not about what brands communicate to the consumers. Your USP, your proposition has to resonate with the consumers. And that is what really drives, loyalty and retention in the medium to long term. Tata brands like Tata Tea and Tata Salt, which are iconic brands in their own right, have been there for decades. And they have been really built on the platform of trust, on exceptional quality. And I don't think there is any other brand in the country which is more respected than the Tata brand. But then it also gives us the responsibility to ensure that we are relevant to the contemporary consumer. And for that, we have to constantly keep working with the consumer to make sure that we are relevant and we are contemporary and that we are finally satisfying the need of the consumer of today. So I think that lens is very, very important, not to take your loyalty for granted, because consumer is today operating on a consideration set which is constantly changing. It's not a fixed consideration set of 4 to 5 brands. I think that's very, very important. And we did talk about consumer archetypes and types of consumers. Our experience in the last couple of years is that archetypes are constantly changing. And if you really build your strategy on certain fixed archetypes and say, okay, these set of consumers or these SEC consumers are going to behave like this, then you will go horribly wrong. You have to have a strategy which is adaptive, which is constantly measuring the pulse of the consumer and change your strategy accordingly.
Right, Naveen, and I think you a very, if I borrow from the last point that you just said, you have to adapt, right? You have to, things are changing. And I think the biggest change all of us saw was what happened in last 18 months, right? Significantly. And I would say, for just like me, I'm sure there are many other people who for the first time brought groceries, buying groceries online happened first time in last 18 months. Before that, you would never think of it, right? Now that has emerged as a very big channel today. I really call it e-commerce is like an extended member in everybody's family, right? It's out there. It's so how did how are you looking at something which is which is a daily need, right? What you provide for, and people are used to it. How are you engaging and embracing e-commerce in your customer engagement and customer growth strategy?
Yeah. So I think e-commerce is a trend which every industry is now really seeing a rapid adoption of. And let me give you some numbers. Maybe a year ago, more than a year ago, before the pandemic, e-commerce used to be 2% of my business. Today, it is 7% of my business, right? And it's growing at triple digit. And in e-commerce now, we no longer talk about annual business plans and annual growth. We talk about quarterly growth, right? So the paradigm has completely shifted. And while it's a significant proportion of the business, what we have also done is we have realized that we need to resource the e-commerce channel adequately, because while there is more and more shopping required, there is a certain expertise which is required in operating in this channel. And we have actually a very dedicated team which works on the e-commerce channel for the last 1 year. And the entire focus is on analytics. It's on interpreting data. It's on micro segmentation, really getting down to speaking to each and every individual consumer and not really look at groups of consumers. So I think that's a big paradigm shift which is happening from e-commerce, and the wealth of data and information which is available from e-commerce is constantly being mined by our research teams to really look at what we can do in terms of identifying consumer buying patterns. Can we group sets of categories together? And you did talk about our portfolio of brands. So let me give you a live example. For example, we just acquired the Soulful brand of millet-based breakfast cereals. And when we did the research, we realized in e-commerce that there is a very strong connect with people who buy that product and who buy green tea, which is why we started bundling these products and ran promotions and very, very targeted offers to those set of consumers. So these are the kind of insights which are coming out from e-commerce, and it's a constant data mining approach, and there is a lot of analytics which goes into this. And every day, pretty much we are tweaking the mix which is getting into the e-commerce account. So that's really helping us. And as Tata Consumer in the last 1 year, we have made a lot of investment as far as our data analytics and digital capability is concerned, and that's really paying us back a lot of dividends.
Okay, a very valid point, and I think yes, new age analytics, insight, n equal to 1, having a mega personalization, pretty much every industry is adopting. But also, I want to link back to the very first point that you said, right? Tata products, there's a huge amount of trust. At the end of the day, loyalty is based on trust. Once that quality trust is broken, it goes away. And for some of your products, which is there, right? Even if I go buy online, I rely on when I go to my grocery store and the kaka that I know there for last 15 years, he'll say, "Madam, take this, naya brand aaya hai, trust, right? Trust kar liye acha hai." And then because you know the guy, you tend to buy from it. So your partners, right, the offline partners, are a very, very integral part of creating that trust, and deflecting your consumers, I would say the end consumers to your brand, right? What kind of, when we talk about loyalty, one is yes with end consumers, which is very much now possible with analytics and insight. But how are you also engaging the concept of loyalty in managing the partners and ensuring that because ultimately they're your brand ambassadors, and in a way the last mile for loyalty driving and amplification in the market. So how are you engaging with that?
That's a great question, Deepti. And For us, the channel partner network is really an extension of our own family. And we have a network of about 10 lakh outlets that we cover directly and about 26 lakh outlets that we reach through our direct plus and direct reach. And we feel that each and every member of that community is extremely important in reinforcing and developing the promise of the Tata brand, right? So I think there they play a very key role. And what we have done in the last couple of years is really augment the quality of our distribution network, which means what is the kind of servicing that we need to do to these retail partners. We have significantly upped that. And let me just give you a couple of examples. Till about a few years ago, FMCG servicing in the market would be a weekly servicing, and the retailer had to really wait. You know that okay, next week, even if I go out of stock, I will only get order to place orders next week. But today, actually during the pandemic, we implemented for the top outlets on-demand servicing model where we said that anytime they have a requirement, because their demand was constantly changing, anytime anybody required something, we would be just a phone call away and our people would go and deliver, right? So the entire demand planning system actually underwent a complete overhaul. Yeah. And the other example I'll quote is that in supply chain planning, yeah, I'm sure you're familiar that generally companies in CPG operate on a 3-month rolling horizon of forecasting. During the pandemic, Tata Consumer actually shifted from that to a weekly system of forecasting, where I would personally sit with the supply chain team and we would review the weekly demand and supply. And because we realized that there is so much of volatility in the demand situation, we need to make sure that the retailer, the channel partner is stocked up. We need to ensure he has the assortment to make sure that my consumer gets the stock. And I think that is how we completely changed our supply chain philosophy. And for us, really servicing the channel partner network is about availability, visibility, freshness to make sure that our products are available at all times, the assortment is available, and that we give the best service to that retailer. So that is what we have enabled through a very agile set of strategies, which is completely digitally enabled.
Right, absolutely. And the other part, which is, if we, if I just take a new dimension to this conversation, which is to say, one is a loyalty with the product, right? But today, if you also look at this generation, which is coming in, the new generation of consumers or the archetypes, as you said, it's a very social conscious generation. We did a research in Deloitte, and about 60% of the consumers said they will associate with a brand because they relate with the higher purpose that they have, right? It could be sustainability, environment, education, any one of those things, right? So there is a deeper brand loyalty that is now coming in than just product loyalty or a transaction loyalty, right? It's about sharing the purpose. How are you seeing that playing out in, amplifying the customer engagement and strategy further of engaging at a brand loyalty from a higher purpose or a shared purpose perspective?
No, absolutely, Deepti, and you really hit the nail on the head because as far as Tata brands goes, for example, if you really look at Tata Tea has a strong parentage of cause-based marketing and really talking about that proposition to the consumers. Yeah, I'm sure you would remember the Jagore campaign that Tata Tea has been running over the decades, and even during the pandemic, we actually picked up very relevant issues like the recent one, which we did was basically on supporting the entire support infrastructure that we have in our lives, whether it's our maids, our domestic help, the people who work in our offices. How can we support them so that they get vaccinated, they are protected from COVID? So we ran an entire campaign on that, which really resonated with all our consumers. And we keep doing this from time to time. And it's not really about selling the product. To my mind, quality and the product is a given today. It's a hygiene. If you're really not going to engage with socially conscious consumers at a very different level, you're going to lose out. And I think all our campaigns in tea, also in Sampan and in the foods category, really pick up that note with the consumers, and we've been very successful in doing that. Yeah. The other thing which I do feel is that today there is more and more talk and also action on ESG, right? So consumers are really looking at brands and companies who are environmentally conscious, who are socially making an impact, and also following the entire governance rules and regulations, right? So we are working very closely with various agencies to make sure that all our brands, all our businesses are really moving in that direction. And the other big important thing is not to just do it on one particular channel or one particular media, but to be really omni-channel in your approach, even with respect to communicating with consumers. So if someone is really on social media and engaging, that person needs to see a consistent messaging. If someone is watching a TV commercial or walking into an outlet, it's a similar messaging. So we make sure that whatever socially relevant messaging we are doing to the consumer really goes across various channels and is a 360-degree approach. But that is really pivotal to our marketing strategy for all our brands.
Right. All right. So, with so much happening in this world, and as this is an innovation and a digital summit of need, from where you're sitting as a marketing sales professional for 20 years, you're in this domain, you're looking at it. What is that one innovation that you think we should look forward to, or organizations need to prepare for? Right, as you started saying, this is about disruption, so that will completely come and disrupt the whole domain of customer engagement, retention, and loyalty. And any one trend that you would like to speak about?
So the biggest trend is disruption, and people keep talking about it, but then I always wonder whether companies do realize the impact that such disruptions will have in their business model. Yeah, and that is what I'm really seeing, because if I really look at, let's say, the FMCG space in India, the CPG space, what I really see is the entire landscape of sales and distribution is changing. Yeah, and you have EB2B players now, you have B2B players who are completely disrupting the way traditional CPG products are distributed, right? However, the issue with a lot of CPG companies is that you get caught up in the past, you get caught up in the inertia of what you've been doing for the last 50 years, 20 years, and you are so loath to change. So everybody wants to sit on the fence, everybody wants to try out a couple of new things, do a little bit of digital, but then digital is your DNA today. If we really don't embrace digital as our DNA, our flesh and blood, yeah, I don't think any company will be able to handle the disruption. And you look at any industry, every 20 years, the top companies change, right? And the one common thread is digital disruption. I think CPG companies in India really need to wake up and make sure that they are prepared for the new tomorrow, which is not too far away. COVID pandemic has really given us a glimpse of things to come. And if we don't enable ourselves digitally end to end, if we don't look at alternate business models, keeping the consumer and the customer in mind, it'll be very, very soon that a lot of companies will get disrupted, and their P&Ls will be at stake. So that would be my advice to all my friends across CPG companies in India.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Navaneel. I completely agree. I think the tomorrow is not very far away. Soon we'll be calling it's today. So absolutely, I think we have to be ready for the digital disruption. And I think if I just summarize some of the key messages that you spoke about in terms of trying to get to hacking growth through customer engagement, loyalty, and retention, really is one, staying relevant to the customer. The consumer archetype is changing day by day, so keep your eye on what they want, respond to their changing behaviors, right? Loyalty across the value chain, it's not just about the end consumer, but your partners and employees are equally important, and we need to regard them and work through them. Having an omni channel and a digital view to the whole cycle of loyalty, consistent messaging across, and at the crux of it, ensuring there is trust that you build in with customers, and you remain, and you carry that, and you sustain that. I think that's very important. And and I'll just again quote this I read somewhere in Harvard, which clearly said, companies invest in consumer loyalty, you make consumers' lives better, they get happy, and they come back and they bring their friends again back to you. So I think that's the real mantra of getting their digital disruption with trust and happiness. And I think that will be there. Navaneel, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and thanks for sharing these enriching insights. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Deepti. Lovely to be here.
Deepti, thank you very much for that convivial chat. And of course, you were right when you said Navaneel is very passionate about what he does and, of course, his brand. So, Navaneel, thank you to you as well, as you spoke about different facets, including ESG and other touch points that at the end of the day matters. So, thank you very much to both of you. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, if you all now would want to lay your hands on fintech innovations we talk about and how they are disrupting the financial ecosystem, you got to be right back as I connect with our next talker. See you.